Welcome to Prerona Television Canada. On behalf of Global Academy of Holistic Leadership and Coaching, I would like to welcome you, our regular leadership speaker series. And today we are very delighted to have our 48th episode. And today's our topic is leadership, culture, and transition. And we are very happy that our regular trainer and speaker, Advocate Jiaur Rahman, is with us. He is the CEO of IITM and adjunct faculty of Independent University. Thank you very much, Advocate Gio Rahman, for your time and for your expertise that you are sharing with us. I now welcome Advocate Gio Rahman to continue this session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Edward Probin Mondol. Good evening in Canada and good morning in Bangladesh and rest of the world. I'm just opening my slides. Just give me a second. I hope you can see my slides right. Can you see my slides now? Can you see my slides, please? Okay. Edward, can you see my slides? Okay, good morning in Dhaka and good evening in Canada and rest of the world. We normally do the series on leadership on this particular day and time. So I'm starting my session on leadership, culture, and transition. So today's session, we have broken it down into two parts. One is the leadership issue, and the other one is the culture and transition towards a better enterprise. At the beginning of all presentations, we would like to suggest that um, some of these tools that we will be talking about are interesting and they can be applied in our lives right from today. So anything that we are sharing, you can apply it from today and onward, and you will start seeing change within your organization and within the people with whom you are working. So moving forward, I normally start off with some quotations, and today we have a very short quotation to start off with. A leader is a dealer in hope. It's by Napoleon Bonaparte. So, in other words, a leader is someone who is giving the hope for the new enterprise, for the new society, for the new country. So, the whole purpose of leadership is based on telling people or selling people on the hope of the future. So you have to be a positive human being. A leader cannot be a negative minded person, because a negative minded person is very, for that person to share hope is very difficult. It will show in their character, in their behavior, in their traits, that I'm a negative person and I cannot be sharing a positive piece of information. Even if I try to share a positive piece of information, it will come across as negative. So the whole point is to be sharing hope in life. So a true leader would be very inclined to share hope in his or her life. Moving forward, this is by General Montgomery, a famous general, army general. My own definition of leadership is this: the capacity and the will to rally men and women to a common purpose, and the character which inspires confidence. In other words, the whole point of leadership is to inspire confidence, is to get people to rally behind you with a common purpose. So, a good leader would have a purpose, a good leader will have a capacity to bring people together and move in the right direction, understanding the context of the audience and framing of his or her perspective, so that the audience easily navigates through his views into a space where he or she wants the team to move forward. So you're you're telling the people a particular story, you're getting them inspired, and you're pushing on confidence and based on the purpose that you are driving forward. So the purpose is, say, your vision. Confidence is your activities, your work, your ethics. Confidence is your way of communication, your body language, etc. So all of these packaged together will drive you towards leadership. So a leadership, as we say, is a journey. It's not a one-off kind of situation that you arrive at leadership and then you forget about that you need to be continually improving upon. It's a process and it's a constant feedback of sharing confidence and connecting you with the purpose. So moving forward, this is by Margaret Mead. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, concerned citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. In other words, leaders are few and they are not around all in all places. So some people will have leadership traits, some people will have fierce leadership traits. So it is the people with fierce leadership traits who are actually going to make changes in this world, in the enterprise level, in society, or in the nation building level. This is always a common fact that only a few people will drive forward the change, and the rest of the people will follow through the ranks of these leaders. These leaders will have the capacity to move the mindset of the people. It is through his or her extensive leadership quality, extensive capability to share a particular perspective that the entire team moves and moves towards a greater outcome. So that's very important. Every organization banks on a few people. Not everybody in the organization takes on the leadership mantle. It is a few people within the organization who sort of either by so either by having the responsibility or the role of a leader, or by taking on situational leadership, that they become leaders in that particular organization and move the organization forward. We know that leadership can be situational, and every person with leadership trait cannot be operating as a leader at every single step of the way. Sometimes a leader who may not be a leader in terms of position can come up because of a situation that has taken place, and somebody jumps in and takes control of the situation, especially in a situation like a panic situation. If there is a fire or some kind of major havoc within an organization, a leader kind of comes up all of a sudden. It is an organic growth. So what we have to do is to understand that in any organization, it is through some thoughtful, planned approach that if a set of leader comes up. In situational leadership, the planned approach is perhaps not there. It happens all of a sudden. But in most cases, when we talk about leadership, it is a set of very few people with great plan and purpose that drives the organization forward. And that is the whole aspect of true leadership. Moving forward, I have a quotation on leadership. As usual, today's quotation is centered around the notion of culture and transition. So, leadership is the ability to propel an organization or community by forging a trusting relations built around a transition in culture. So, it is built around a transition in culture. Remember, any organization that we are talking about is going through some kind of complexity on a daily basis, because either products are changing, either the service quality levels are changing, either the whole macroeconomic conditions are changing. If you notice in today's marketplace, in the COVID infested pandemic situation, many companies have to recreate their old brand, the way they used to do their business, the way they would shape their markets, the way they would produce their products and services, all of that has changed. In many cases, the products and services of the old economy, meaning pre-pandemic situation, perhaps is no longer a product or service that is of value in today's market space, given the context that we have gone through this turbulent economic, social changes that we have seen due to this pandemic. So what we are looking at is leadership is actually building this trust level so that the transition can actually take shape, because without the transition, you and your product may not survive the market. So you have to organize a set of systems and processes through which your team is actually moving in this new direction. And unless you move in this new direction, your products will be obsolete. Your products will lose its market value. So as a leader of your department, or a leader of your product, or leader of the total enterprise, you have to manage these sequences of events. This sequence of events, meaning the traits that are moving, the market behaviors that are changing, and that are affecting your organization and the environment in which you're working. So this is a constant flux. So you have to build a forging relationship during this process with your team, so that you and your stakeholders are all lined up in producing the next set of results that you have to produce. Otherwise, you may go under as a business. And that is the reality of today's marketplace. It is very difficult, a challenge. You have to constantly ask yourself, are we prepared to handle this context? Are we prepared to offer the products and services that are needed for this society, needed for the market? Do we have the wherewithal? Do we have the technology? Do we have the intellectual space, the work ethics, the environment, etc.? So many things have to be put into the game, into the puzzle, and then intricately weaved so that the proper fabric of the new product or the new organizational structure evolves. So it's a constant battle. So we are looking at this area of the battle between the old products and services, and some people trying to stick to the old ideas, and then the battle towards moving towards the new frontier, which is more risky. The outcomes are less understood. People are not getting the right set of they're not getting the right mindset to work and create the new product or services, because they really don't know how the future is going to pan out. So many complexities, so many oddball situations are out in the market that it becomes very difficult. But even during that situation, you have to forge trusting relations, and you have to explore the culture, and also find out the happy ground towards navigating towards the new culture. And then whatever outcome you are achieving would be part of your leadership journey, part of your leadership process. So as a human being, you are to be doing this on a regular basis in order to survive in the market. Moving forward, culture and norms. We had previous sessions on culture and norms. So without going into the definition, we would like to make some value statements. So culture and norms connects with innate internal human traits and is shaped by the orientation of the person in family and society. So in other words, your family, your society in which you grew up will be a large influencer in the way you think things, in the way you move your mindset, in the way certain issues are important, certain issues are less important in your brain. Why is this happening? It is because of your cultural adaptations and orientation all throughout your life. So you have to be understanding this thought that you cannot just change someone overnight. You have to understand the culture and the norms and the values judgments that this person held due to his or her family orientation or societal orientation or the environment in which she grew up. A person growing up in, let's say, in a highly, what should I say, in a in an environment where you are seeing a lot of affluence, you will tend to be more, you'll be less cost conscious in those types of environment, because everywhere you're seeing opulence. You have never seen misery, you have never seen that there is economic scarcity, because you come from a very affluent family. So if you are grow up through this family, and then at one given point you are leading an organization, the tendency for you to be affluent in your thought process, in activities, would be there. But if you are running an organization which is under severe economic constraints, then have are you the right person? You have to ask yourself, or can you evolve yourself in order to accommodate those transitions that you really need in order for you to survive in this new environment, which is lot less opulent, where you have to really weigh things before you do things. You have to be extremely budget conscious, etc. So those issues play a vital role in your leadership journey. So your societal orientation and your family orientation will actually create who you are and how you respond to society. So these issues can be changed over time. You can doctor these thought process, you can nurture yourself and then try to evolve yourself to a different you. That might take time, and to be very frank, you cannot completely switch yourself around. You cannot completely turn yourself completely into a different person. That is almost impossible. But you could try to mold yourself, mold your mindset, mold your characteristic, mold your paradigms over a certain period of time. But it will be a long journey, and mostly it's self-sticky. Human beings' norms, traits are sticky, so to speak. But anyway, there is hope if you practice towards it, if you learn the ropes of the change and the ways that you actually can transition. If you learn these tools, then you will evolve and move forward. So culture norms are shaping your programs and policies. So what I'm suggesting is that every program or policy that you deploy in your organization is somehow connected with the way you had been growing up, your the way you actually engaged in your discussions in life, etc., will play a pivotal role in shaping the future uh, direction of you and your thought process. So while it can be molded, while it can be evolved, there would be a lot of stickiness to your thought process that you have to work at it, specifically when you are moving in a different type of environment where you are not accustomed to. You have to mold yourself and change the mindsets and all the paradigms you held. If you were a very conservative person in your life, and if you are working in an environment which is very, let's say, non-conserved, very open, very moving, you will obviously feel a little bit level of discomfort. You might feel a larger level of discomfort, but if you are smart in managing your these issues of different paradigms, then slowly you can actually engage with your stakeholder community and learn and adapt. So learning your in those environment becomes very important. So the it's a journey of self, it's a journey of moving yourself through the cultures and norms into something productive, something useful in society. So your focus would be to understand yourself, like the know thyself type of situation. And if you understand the self of everyone around you collectively as a team, then obviously you will be playing a stronger role in shaping the future of the organization through uh, changes in the culture, changes in the paradigms, changes in their mindset. It is sticky, but if you play a very smart role, then slowly but surely you can move your community's mindset, the people with whom you work over a certain period of time. So you have to worry about yourself and how it is coming about, the transitions that you are thinking at the back of your mind. Are you being able to incorporate those transitions based on the culture and norms that you had previously? And how can you slowly draw yourself into the new self through adapting to the new culture? So the learning focus would be heavy. And if you continually do this, and if you are leading a particular organization or division, others will emulate. It's about emulation. It's about getting a feel that in you are both in the comfort zone, and then the shift will transition will take place. So these are very important issues. So the culture and norm paradigms must be understood at an appropriate level. You can't just go through these issues very quickly and expect that changes will take place overnight. So as a leader, you have to build the pieces of the puzzle for the change to take place. So it's a lot of traction that you have to build within your environment, and it will be based on a lot of sharing of communication, a lot of sharing of stories, a lot of sharing of practices that are going around in order for you to move to the new organization. It is a lot of case discussions, etc. It is a lot of brainstorming sessions, so many things. So the learning focus have to be recalibrated so that ultimately you are moving towards the new enterprise. So the leadership of an enterprise is growing based on the culture that you're transitioning towards. So moving forward, so what would the leader do in ensuring that the transition of culture is also taking place? Because without the transition of culture, your new orientation in the market will be greatly affected, and you will not achieve the intended target success that you had planned for. Ultimately, your vision will not be executed. And when an organization achieves much less compared to the visions setting that they had done, it will be a negative on the organizational mindset and behavior, and it will flow within the organization. You will see that the sense of engagement is no longer there. People are there, but people are operating without the zest for life. There is the passion level in this organization has come down because you are not hitting your target. So what you have to do as a leader is to ensure that the transition is taking place for you to move to the next level. And this is happening through your cultural understanding, understanding human traits and behavior, and applying all this set of tools that are needed to mold your behavior, mold your perspective in life. So it has to be balanced based on the in-house culture. If you're trying to make a sweeping transition from what you were not to what you want to be in one great sweep of events, it will not work. So it has to be built upon a strong foundation. So today you might be only worrying about a few things that you want to move, you want to change, you want to transition towards. You don't worry about doing everything and all in the same go. It will backfire, it may boomerang. So you want to do a certain level of change in the next few weeks, and you work towards it. You build the communication platform, you get people to sort of be imbued with your spirit, or the perspective that you want to share forth and forward. So you build that perspective through different communication channels, different narratives, a little bit of work activity, etc., brainstorming session, etc. So the culture of moving has to be based on a balanced perspective. Then comes the internalization of knowledge. You have to capture the knowledge. It's knowledge, wisdom, and skills all combined. You have to have that internalized in your people, in your system. Once they are sort of getting the confidence level up through acquiring the right set of knowledge and skills, then the transition, the culture and the transition that we're talking about for a leader can actually take shape. Then comes the issue of understanding perspective of the gatekeepers. We know the concept of gatekeepers. Gatekeepers are sort of like opinion leaders who actually shape the views of an organization, or who allow information to pass or not to pass, who suggest that, oh, we can't be doing this because of these issues. So there's gatekeepers. Information flows through the gatekeeper. Gatekeeper only passes the information that they think is relevant, and the other pieces of information are subdued. They are not escalated. They are pushed down in the priority ranks. So when you have very powerful gatekeeper community, you have to understand their perspective. You have to mold them. You have to get to have a free and frank discussions with them on the change and the transition and the needed culture that is required for that change to take place. You have to sit with these gatekeepers. You have to have brainstorming sessions. Maybe you have to do some mentoring. Those things have to be done in a very effective way. If you go with a senior leader as who is a gatekeeper and try to tell that person that the way you did things, the way you were involved in things, we are no longer going to do this, that will give a wrong signal. So what you have to do is try to get the gatekeepers to understand the future state that you want to drive towards. You try to share the story of the future state and how you would like to go about, and what is it that it is required within the team members in order to be there, in order to be there in terms of the support community, in terms of the action community, in terms of the finance and budgeting committees and all whatnot, all the components of the organization, how they will have to work in synchronicity in order to achieve that outcome. These are the stories, these are the narrative that you have to share with your gatekeeper. And this will not happen overnight. You will have to allow the gatekeepers to go back, think it through, then come back the next week or the next day, give them more input or some concrete input that will facilitate their transformation in their thinking process, to accelerate. So those would be a time bound exercise, a very concerted exercise. You can't be just thinking that this will happen overnight. So it's a dissemination of knowledge. It's a dissemination of the change that the process has to improve, and it is a dissemination of the knowledge that your activities will be different in the coming days from what you were doing previously. Because in order for the new shaping of the organization, or in order for the new vision to take place, a lot of changes have to be undertaken in this enterprise. So all of these have to be conveyed to the gatekeepers. So the understanding the gatekeepers perspective is vital, and understanding how to arrange the gatekeepers thought process mindset based on their own subjective norms and values, etc., and mental paradigms. We talked about the mental paradigms previously, and that is an important element that you have to think about on a regular basis. And once you go through these process, you have to assess the ability of change and transform also within the enterprise. Even if the gatekeeper is knowledgeable, but if that gatekeeper is a person who really does not want to change, who really does not want to pick up on new ideas, in spite of the fact that he or she was great in his or her previous role, but the roles have changed, and you are trying to convey to your gatekeeper that you have to assimilate into this new role in order for us to move as an enterprise to the new level. If you cannot do that, or if that person is incapable or unwilling to transform himself or herself, then you have a wrong gatekeeper guarding your doors. You have to make a very strategic decision as to change that person. Obviously, you don't want to terminate a person right away. You have to give them the floor, an opportunity to contextualize the new set of circumstances that have evolved. And unless these changes are taking place, the function of the gatekeeper will be marginalized, or the activity of the gatekeeper will not be needed. If you can convey this message with clarity and with confidence, then I'm sure all gatekeepers of the world will eventually understand that either they need to move forward, or they might be terminated, or they might get pushed down in the ranks in this new economy, in this new uh, pro- service culture, in this new product culture that are to be evolving in this organization. Uh, Last week, I was reading an article where a CEO mentioned that this was a lady. She mentioned that her enterprise has 12,000 employees, and managing 12,000 employees at an individual level would be very, very hard. So what she had done is she had set up certain patterns, like certain systems and processes on ground, which everybody has to connect to. So if you want to work in that particular enterprise, you have to abide by certain rules, certain procedures, and certain norms that you have to value, and you have to sort of connect and be imbued with that spirit. If you are with that perspective, then the organization will not be dysfunctional and it will move forward. This is not to say that you will not be innovative. This is not to say that you will not question the old. This is not to say that you will not question what is being implemented. You can do all of that. But once you get past the questions, once you get to know the outcome that will probably result from the set of activities that you are taking at this present time, then you need to quickly connect to those new paradigms, new perspectives, because this is the new culture, the new transition in culture that you have to abide by in order for you to move to the next level within the enterprise. So this is an important issue. You have to assess your ability to change and your ability to transform. Not you meaning just yourself, the people around you, whoever is part of your organization or making meaningful contribution in the product or the service where you are actually trying to move the enterprise in terms of its processes, or in terms of its service, or in terms of its new products, etc. So this is a shifting, game changing mindset that the leader has to wear on a regular basis. Am I capable to move to the next level? Do I have the right tool, right mindset? These are the direct questions and indirect questions that you have to ask on a regular basis. And once you have all of these understood at a macro and micro level, then the transition, the transition of values, the transition of culture can actually take shape, and you will probably build a better enterprise ultimately, because you are no longer stuck with the old. You are bringing in the new perspective and the new genre of technology, services, mindset, etc. For example, if you're doing a certain product, you're manufacturing a certain product using old machine and old technology, and the new machine and new technology is highly dependent on, let's say, the fourth generation cloud computing. It's highly connected with intelligence, artificial intelligence, and machine learning, etc. So there is a lot of new learning that has to take shape, which previously the individual was doing with his or her own understanding and through his or her own life's experience. He would be changing certain parameters within the machine in order for the machine to put the right output. Now the machines are more intelligent. They will do their own alteration as the system and environment is changing. So your role is to understand why they're doing these things, what are the new intelligent logic that has been built into the machine, etc. If you are in line with that, then you will be a good person operating this machine. Otherwise, you will be thrown into confusion, because the machine is altering certain processes based on its logic, and you are not connected to the logic at all. So you'll probably be a dysfunctional machine operator at that time. So these are the new transformation and the new learning that you have to adapt to on a regular basis for the new processes that will have to be brought into your enterprise. So this is not just in terms of manufacturing, this can be in terms of also designing the new process, and the new process will also have uh, intelligent input using machine learning and all these new technology driven products and services. So you have to evolve as a leader, and you have to make sure that do you have the wherewithal within yourself and the wherewithal within the team. So these are should be the leader's approach to engage in the transition for a better culture within the organization. Moving forward, building the new enterprise culture. If you are understanding of the set of new tools and the new mindset and the new paradigms that are needed for the enterprise, then you are halfway past the halfway past, close to the winning post. So what you are doing is right now through this process is you are building your enterprise. So the train changes that you want to incorporate, you have to start incorporating them in your normal day-to-day activities, in your processes, in your decisions that you have actually taken. So you have to find the people within your organization who would actually deconstruct the old and reconstruct the new enterprise. So these would be the change maker. These would be the people who would be shaping the opinions and moving the enterprise into the new horizon with the new mindset and new culture and the new products and services. So the change makers are vital, and you will be spending a lot of time dialoguing and communicating with the change maker. And this change maker would probably be from within, but you will also want to bring in external consultants to come in and guide some people within the enterprise, so the change can actually take place in a quicker timeline, because time is money. We know that in business. So we have to develop and foster stakeholder dialogue. When we talk about bringing in external consultant, we can also bring in external persons who are in this industry, who might be partly connected with your supply side, maybe in your a vendor in your supply chain management, maybe a vendor within your extended logistics department. You might have to bring in their input, because for example, containing costs, you're just considering your product and your quality and maybe the components you're thinking, but at you may not have been thinking about the cost that you can save due to packaging the product in a shorter in a shorter space, in a in a lower volume space. That means previously, the let's say the product, once it was ready to go, was taking a larger a volume in a let's say shipment kind of situation, and that shipper could only take 50 of your products in one go. But if you could alternate the design, and then you could squeeze the product in certain way, that now you can actually pack more than 50, let's say 60 products in the same shipment. So per unit shipment cost would automatically come down. So this is efficiency. Perhaps that didn't bother you in your present situation, because you were not considering the stakeholder process. But when you brought in the logistics company person to discuss how to make the entire supply chain more effective, more cost effective, etc., these inputs were given by your supply chain logistics company, which was perhaps not at the back of your mind. So that is the impact of a proper stakeholder engagement. So you have to develop and foster this stakeholder engagement and dialogue. So I just gave you this example. So if you can consider other areas, and if you can bring in other examples to my example, then it will be easier for you to understand why this stakeholder process is so vital in moving the organization and even in moving the culture within the organization. Because when you bring in stakeholders and they talk about other organizations' behavior, traits, and the internal culture, then you, from those their narratives, from their perspectives, you can actually get a feel for what you really need to do in order for you to survive this business climate in which you are pushed into, given the set of new changes that are taking place globally. So nurture confidence and trusting relations. This goes without saying that if you don't nurture confidence within your team members and within yourself, and if you don't build the trust-based relationship within your organization, things will not come out as planned. It will fall apart. Things will be going in different directions because there will be no particular person to whom you have given your trust, that you have given your trust in the sense that if there is an issue, if there is a complexity, let me go to that person and get the direction, and then we will follow through that person's guideline. And that's how you actually make things take place within the organization. It is the shapers of opinion to whom you can go and get the feel for what needs to be done, and do an appropriate strategy and recalibrate your process or your system or your thought process, and then you can actually get to a better result. So that's important. You have to be constantly nurturing and building trusting relationship within your organization in all ranks and file within your organization. It's not just having a trusting relationship with your CEO or the boss of the organization. Everyone within your team member, you have to find people with whom you can discuss, and who is knowledgeable and who is driven by a set of purpose for the organization, and you can build the trusting relationship with that person. Normally things will be running effectively in those kind of situations. Then you can also introduce win-win risk reward culture. Every organization that we know that has survived in the great corporate jungle has actually had to evolve over time. Many organizations started off with different products, and they ended up having a completely new product line and have done remarkably well. Whereas the old product, if they had been there with the old product without any transformation, then maybe the product or the company could have been gone bankrupt. So you have to be building your enterprise based on introducing certain risks within the enterprise. If you are never taking risk in terms of product changes in the product, in terms of branding your organization differently, in terms of bringing new set of people, in terms of inspiring them in a different way, in terms of giving them a different set of rewards based on a differently planned work practice, you will never move to a positive outcome. This does not mean that you will be doing this risk reward culture on a daily basis. If you're doing that, then of course other problems will come about, meaning people will be confused as to what to do next, because it's so dynamic, it's so volatile an environment that many people will lose their mindset in those type of environment, and lose their how to connect with their vision. They will lose their understanding level within the enterprise, and they will start becoming inefficient. You don't want to do that. You want them to be connected to a singular purpose, and then you will evolve the organization based on connecting to the purpose and attainment of the purpose. You want to attain that particular purpose, and whatever needs to be done, you introduce. And you also introduce the risk reward culture in a balanced way, so that you are not turning the table head on. You are making changes, you are adding new ideas, but it's coming in a proper and balanced way. In the previous slide, we had talked about balancing your perspective, and this is pretty much in line with that perspective. And last but not the least, you ought to be promoting the culture of innovation for your leadership to prosper and grow, because change is a tool, change is a issue that is constant. uh, Things will evolve next year and the year after. So if you are promoting the idea of innovation, you are putting your people to work in the sense that they're putting their brain cells to work. They're not just doing the everyday duty, they are also finding space to think about what is coming next year or next quarter or next 5 years. Are we ready for the next 2 years, 5 years? Do we have the right products, or do we need to evolve? Do we need to throw this product out and come up with a new product, or do we change certain components of the product or service and be again visible in the market and have a good output in the market? So these are part of building a new enterprise. So as a leader, you ought to be understanding that culture is not fixated, but you also need to be understanding that sometimes culture becomes a big store in your journey towards advancement. So the way you have to evolve your culture within your organization is very tricky, and it also depends on your com- structure of your team members within your organization. If you have a very young team, then breaking the old culture and remolding or rebranding with new ideas and forming a new set of culture would be easier. But if you have a very powerful senior team who are being very sticky in their mindset, maybe they have been successful up to a certain point, but now the ship has changed its course, in the sense new products and services are required, but the senior team have not truly understood that the markets are shifting. So and you're continually focusing on trying to better your products and service, which will not work ultimately. And so you need to move away. And in this case, I will give you an example. For example, the DVD ROM industry. In today's PC, uh, you will not get the DVD ROM anymore. Why? The entire paradigm of the industry has changed. The paradigm has moved from having a CD based technology to save your uh, data, you save your movies, etc. It has gone into a cloud-based environment that you can just click and then you can download certain things. You watch a movie or you do certain training, and then you move to the next outcome. Wait for the next outcome or the next movie or whatever. So the entire paradigm of how you would save your information has changed. So the DVD ROM industry is no longer pertinent. So if you were a leader in your organization and you were a factory operating, manufacturing DVD ROMs in the ICT sector, in the computer technology sector, and if you did not pay attention to the changes that are taking place and the culture, the new culture of innovation in the ICT sector in terms of information, how information will be saved. This is a completely new mindset. And if were not understanding this transformation, then you would be stuck with the old CD-ROM factory, and you will be making billions of dollars of loss by this time. So a good leader has to see the winds of change that are coming and appropriately plan and strategize and evolve. So the idea of innovation should be the center piece of the puzzle in this entire process of change and transformation and leadership. So moving forward to the next slide, change communication. As I mentioned, you can't be changing things in your head. You might be very sharp, but if you're only thinking in your head and not sharing extensively within your enterprise, then the change would probably not come the change will not come as appropriately that as you plan. So you have to constantly go out and share your thoughts, talk to people, get your own thoughts organized and maybe recalibrated as well. So promote open discussion. You need to go into the enterprise, your own enterprise, with a hat, wearing that perspective that these new changes I will communicate, but I will also seek input from the others, because certain things I may not have looked at, I may have overlooked. So that is very important in the new design of my or our enterprise. Offer reasons and explain outcomes. If you feel that the product or services or the new processes that you're bringing forth has merit, then you offer extensive reasons, logical reasons, and explain the outcomes that will come about through this change. So once people can connect to the outcome at an appropriate level, then they can realize that, okay, these are the new ways that we need to do these things, because it is going to give us these results. Once you connect to the results, then people sort of warms up to the change, then connects with examples to real life case discussions. If you can bring in case discussions from another industry or a relevant industry, and what had happened and what were the procedures and what processes that they had to go through, if you can bring those into your discussion, then the change is more visible, it's more tangible. So the leadership will be more fluid in making people move from the current set of mindset to the new mindset, the new paradigm that you need to move towards. Organized brainstorming session. This, it goes without saying. If you are making sweeping changes or you're making reasonably large changes, you need to have sessions where you bring in your people and external people and have a lot of discussions and debates. And through these type of discussions, debate, the policy of the organization is properly understood and communicated. And also, by getting the feedback from the people, you can also revise your policies or your processes or the new way of doing things. This would be a wonderful gesture on the part of your team and your leadership to actually combine their minds and actually put their thoughts moving forward for the enterprise. Because if you are wearing a mindset that whatever goes on, I will stick to my old practices, this way, this may not put the right energy and right passion within the enterprise, because you might be at a mid-level position or you might be at a top level position. But if you have that sticky mindset, and if you are not moving from your old philosophy, you're too fixated in the old, then that will have a negative repercussion in the environment. Others will sort of get a negative signal, and they might also feel that since somebody is not changing, why do I need to change? Why do I have to incorporate so many new things and spend so many hours learning new ways of doing business? I will be like that person. So you as a leader, you ought to be finding these people who might be hesitant to change, have very serious sessions with them. uh, Call it brainstorming, call it other terms, doesn't matter, but get these people on board, tell them the story of the future in a very lucid manner so that they can appropriately try to understand. It is sometimes the no, it is sometimes that it is sometimes the situation where people are not bad people, but they're hesitant to change. You might think that they're just being there, being obstinate because they just don't want you to succeed. Don't wear those type of mindset. Wear the mindset that these people are hesitant because they have been accustomed to the old. My job is to extricate themselves from that old basket of thoughts and create a new path for them to move towards the new basket of thinking. So think in those terms. This will actually work wonders. That is, you will be building more trust with these people. Your body language and their body language will be syncing. And it's very important to realize that if you want people to change, and if you are showing some negative vibes in yourself and trying to push them or over push them into a particular direction, then it might be
something, it might be a negative. Instead of going forward, you might actually push yourself back. So then you have to come back to a negative situation. You have come back to the old situation that is even more negative, and recalibrate or try to refix that negative component and then move forward. So you have already lost energy previously, and now you're going to be losing more energy. So pushing people too much may actually backfire. So building the trust through creating a proper narrative and visualizing and recontextualizing the vision that you plan to have would actually be so much more uh, better, rather than pushing someone to change. So this process would not be a training, so to speak. It might be a process to mentor people, guide them, facilitate their learning, and uh, give them a set of uh, answers that they may be thinking at the back of their minds. So you have to be the sort of the an open discussion and flow of, so you have to floor an open discussion. You have to be like an open encyclopedia of what you're thinking. You have to convey to these people. So these are very important. But you have to also remember at an appropriate level that not everybody will be at par with your thinking, and not everybody would be qualified to be at par with your thinking, because if that was the case, then everybody will become the CEO. That knowledge you have to have within yourself. Having that knowledge, you still would like to bring people almost as close to your thought process, so that the new change that you are planning to implement within your organization through this change of culture will actually take place. So moving forward, I'm at the end of my session. I normally have $1 million questions. Today's $1 million question is: should leaders spend much time in finding in-house in-house change? I- Sorry, should leaders spend much time in finding in-house other change leaders and communicate with them to build the next enterprise, or take the onus of responsibility solely himself or herself? So in-house other change leaders we are talking about, should leaders find a lot of time in trying to find out who would be other leaders who you might want to bring forth within your organization, who have been working, let's say, in different capacity, in order for you to move this new change, the new transformation that you're trying to push forth? This is a very tricky question. In other words, if you are looking for other change agents or change leaders within your enterprise, you're actually sort of giving a signal to your present leaders within your departments that you are probably not doing your work properly, or you are probably not fit for the organization, given the new set of consequences or the new set of products and services that we are working with now. This would be a very tricky situation, but reality is that sometimes if you don't make these alterations within your enterprise will go bust, it will go under. So you cannot keep everybody happy. That's the whole magic word of leadership. You can keep happy some people, but your main job is to make sure the the stakeholders, whoever is connected, the wider audience, and your shareholders are happy, and and also your employee base, larger number of employee base is happy. So if you're making a transition towards a new enterprise with new products and services, obviously a few people may not be as happy as they used to be. They might be feeling the fear, and they might be talking negative issues within the enterprise to thwart the change, uh, thwart your progress. They might be like a negative gatekeepers that we talked about, and actually subvert the outcome that you want to achieve. So these people would be a sort of a thorn in the journey for the new change. You might have to mold them through a lot of brainstorming sessions, and if not, the worst situation, you might have to ask them to leave your enterprise. So this is an important issue. But the question today is actually, what is the level of time that you would be committing to do this, or whether you take the responsibility yourself completely and almost like work like a ram, and you know you bulldoze your way forward. Normally bulldozing your ideas will only work maybe in smaller enterprises, but you can't be bulldozing a complete new change, a sweeping change in a large enterprise, because large enterprises are governed by the lot of different mindsets and lot of very qualified people, and they might be sitting in different parts of the world. So even if you try to bulldoze through your internet communication, Zoom meetings, etc., you can't be everywhere at the same time physically. So it would be a difficult strategy, and I think it may backfire, because if certain things starts to fall in one zone, it will also fall in another zone, because you were like the leader who almost did not listen to anyone, and you slave drived, and you actually achieve certain output, but you're constantly doing this practice, and if one community revolts, everybody else will also find a reason to revolt. So you don't want to be in that type of shoe where there is a huge level of discomfort within your enterprise, and you want to proceed, but you don't really have the leverage from your people. So the whole idea would be to find some change agents within your enterprise without unsettling the leadership within the enterprise. So the functional leaderships may be there, with whom you can actually create the output that you are trying to arrive at, you are trying to build. But at the same time, you will have to find other leaders who might be effective for this new design of the new enterprise, and bring them forward, connect them with the new management team, add them to the new management team, and move forward. So it's a complex task, it's very difficult. As we say, the change is one of the most complex things in our lives. We tend to be always gravitating towards our old self. It's very hard for you to move from your old self to new self. It's a lot of complex thinking, changes in paradigm, a lot of learning, a lot of knowledge, a lot of self speaking to yourself. So this has to go across the organization, and that's how you actually make a organization functional in the complexity that it is going through, specifically in today's market space. So I think with that, I will end my presentation, and I am Advocate Ziarman, Professor Advocate Ziarman from Dhaka, and wishing you a good day, and be safe, and good luck, and hope to see you next week. I am the CEO of IITM in Dhaka and adjunct faculty with IUB. Thank you very much. And back to you, Edward Provin.